Cattle Dog, Ohsama. Hello and welcome to KamenRider Blackman. Today, we will finally be discussing the most recently completed Sentai from this past year, Ohsama Sentai Kingohger. Oh crap, I should have just sung the opening. Ohsama Sentai Kingohger. Moments passed. But Kingohger, the most recent Sentai. I definitely have been meaning to watch this show, and I've definitely been meaning to review this show. What is it like? It's like July now, and I've meant to do this back in March or April or May, somewhere then. But to make up for it, literally after this review, the latter half of 2024 is going to be reviews. But for this show alone, insects, that is something that maybe we've all been wanting to see be used for a Sentai for some time. Has anyone ever wanted an insect-themed Sentai? I know my friend Thomas made an insect-themed Sentai once, but to actually see it on TV, wow. Yeah, and I know we have had something like this before with the Go-Riders from Hurricanegers, but the Go-Riders are a subgroup. This is a whole Sentai, and it's just so surprising. But that's all to say, so let's get into the show, starting with the opening, to which, not a bad opening. It's really triumphant, and it works for this show, because this show feels like an epic. And during, say, mech fights, on the ground fights, hearing the opening play is just so, you get, it gives more gravitas into the heroes, well, being triumphant, especially when you hear King of Kings, na 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 na. It makes everything honestly more awesome. It hypes you up. And so, with that said, let's get into episode 1, I Will Be King. We open to a narrator who isn't random for once. Yes, it's surprising, for as many times as we see random narrators, they usually exist for some reason or the other. But we have one again, but this time he's important. The said narrator retells the story of the Kingohgers. 2,000 years ago, on the planet Chiku, 5 people in insect-themed spandex fought the Bugnarok with the power of Kingohger, a 10-point mech consisting of the Zords of the show, the Shoe Gods. The Bugnarok were defeated, but left a prophecy that in 2,000 years' time, the Bugnarok will come back. But in the meantime, the heroes became monarchs and ruled their own lands. So, 2,000 years later today, it's the day the prophecy is said to come true, and for said occasion, the rulers come together for a world conference in Shugadam, the land of the Kuwagata Ogre, ruled by King Reculus Husky. Interesting enough, I appreciate now that this show has variety in its characters and what type of rulers they all are, especially when you consider the benefits each nation brings to the table. It all feels modern and reminiscent of world history. But as for rulers, very few characters are kings, especially when you consider that one character is a woman and the other is non-binary. So speaking of which, our first non-binary Sentai character, been a long time coming, very nice. But for the most part, it's like looking in a time machine with this show. So, for our rulers 2, There's President Yanma Gast of Niskopa. Since it's been years since Kingohger was needed or even used, Yanma and his people have converted Kingohger, or at least God Kuwagata, to electrical power and not mystical power to be active. And then there are the others: Queen Himino-ran of Ishibana, Lord Kagaragi Deboski of Tofu, and Judge Rita Kaniska of Gokan, and they all contribute medical knowledge, agriculture, and an overall justice system. Considering this show keeps things... Well, for starters, this show takes place on another planet. It's been a long time since we've had that. And here, things are centralized but not separate. We can still have multiple bodies for these benefits of living, like food and medicine. But the one thing that is agreed upon is having neutrality. And while we're at it, not everyone is a king. Yanma is a president, and that's very different from being a king. And Rita is the judge and ruler of a nation. For anyone who's ever heard of Kratarsky, where judges have political power. My point is, everything is also different, and not what you expected from a show about being a ruler of a nation. Being a king sounds like the easiest thing to go for, but no, they went for more leaders in government, and in the process made more world building, so thank you. And shoot, one of the best things about this show is how everything has depth and personality to them. But before getting into the personality part, let's talk about the geographical depth of Chiku and the 5 nations. Niskopa feels more like it actually is the closest to modern society, while Shogadam and Ishibana are similar enough to each other, feeling back then medieval times per se. Gokan, on the other hand, takes place in the South Pole part of the planet, which is actually pretty interesting. I'm actually kind of curious now if they wanted to base Gokan off of, well, Russia, possibly. And the country of Tofu, it takes up 2 continents. That, to me, that blows my mind. I looked that up on the wiki. Like, maybe it makes sense because they're all about agriculture, but that's just so surprising to me. That's cool. Now, and like what I said before, each nation has personality because there's a lot of CGI in the show. Like what I said with Shogadam and Ishibana, they're similar enough to each other, but they're so vibrant with colors. Like, Shogadam is more beige or tan, while Ishibana is a lot more bright with the color yellow, which makes sense because of the ranger. With Shogadam, it's trying to be more reflective, while Ishibana is following more motifs. And shoot, for the other nations too, Gokan is pretty straightforward, ice everywhere, and it's chilly. But with Niskopa, that's the land of Tanbo Oju, the Blue Ranger, so you see different shades of blue looking steampunkish, and that's nice. While Tofu is meant to reflect the Sengoku period of Japan, at best. But for CGI everywhere, there's CGI in all those locations. It's like, half the time you see actual sets and locations. That's how much personality the show has. CGI here, there, maybe not there, but also it's right there. Like, shoot, not just for the lands, of course, the mechs. Like, God Kuwagata has to be the only puppet mech in this show, because everything else is CGI. And that says something, because I'm not usually one to talk about visuals because I never have much to say about them, but it's worth discussing them here because from Zenkaiger to this show, Toei had to be ballin'. Because just CGI freaking everywhere. Like, Boon Boonger feels so back to basics. But, back to the show. This meeting in Shugadam is to discuss the use of Kingohger. Raculus declares that he should have full control of Kingohger, since Shugadam is the leading nation of Chiku, and everyone agrees except for Yanma. While everyone thinks he's being rather ignorant, he's actually being pretty reasonable, thinking no one should have all that power. And as this episode goes on, yeah, he was right. Raculus wants to unite all the nations under him by threatening whomever with Kingohger. He doesn't care who gets hurt. Empire, townspeople, all he wants is power. And conveniently enough, the Bugnarok attack. I'm not going to talk about the suits just yet because I want to wait till we get to Red. And speaking of which, another important character is Gira from Shogadam. He lives in an orphanage, and once the Bugnarok attack, he hears Himeno say where's Raculus, and runs to the castle to ask why he isn't fighting. And Gira just walks right in. Like, I'm dead serious. The next scene is literally Gira walking through the castle hall. Like, Shogadam Castle does not have good security if anyone could just walk in. Then again, when monster attacks happen, no armies are deployed to deal with them. We'll see some soldiers around, yes, but you never see any armed forces try to fight the monsters. Raculus, for whatever reason, tells the commoner of his motivations, not thinking repercussions will happen. Oh look, repercussions happen. Gira snags the Ohsama caliber off of Raculus, becoming... first declaring himself the evil king who will stop Raculus. This is my second or third time watching this first episode. I definitely found it a weird way to cope at first. And I do, but I don't know what to say. But Gira becomes Kuwagata Ohsama and awakes his shoe god, God Kuwagata, or Kuwagon, as Gira calls him. So now, let's talk about the suits, considering we'll see Tombo Ohsama's next episode. I like these suits. Papillon Ohsama's is my favorite, but altogether, I do like these suits. I don't think I love them because I feel like they're a bit dark, but they are good suits. And considering the different shades that they have along with the spandex and chest armor up top, it works here that they're pretty dark in colors. Because, okay, I guess while I'm at it too, I do like the chest armor and the capes I guess they all have. That's a nice touch, considering they're all kings and queens, and stereotypically, most people could think of a king as in knight armor with the cape or cloak. The one thing, however, I do think is a little too simple, but it definitely did take some time to grow on me, depending on which one, are the visors on the helmet. Like, Red's is the most simple because it's a stag beetle with the horns sticking out. I don't know, I feel like for insects, they should have more details. Like for example, the Goraigers. They're similar enough to the Hurricanegers, but they have like gold shoulder pads and other gold areas on the suits, along with the horns to go along and feel a bit more... It's how I put it. It's like all that could be used on the Kingohger suits to feel a bit more royal, I guess. But there's definitely one thing I do want to bring up, and it involves Papillon Ohsama. That is not Violet. I need someone to change down the wiki, because honest to God, like, her suit is not Violet, and the wiki counts her as a Violet Ranger. Like, I'm being so honest. Like, that's not Violet. Boon Violet is Violet. This, it's more It's either lavender or lilac, but it's too light to be violet. But that's just me. And while I'm still talking about Papillon Ogre, her suit is my favorite. I love the colors used for it, and I love her helmet. And that's about it. While I'm still on the helmets, Papillon Ogre's helmet and suit's my favorite. Tanba Ogre's helmet, this is what I mean about needing more details, like, all around, because Tanba Ogre's visor, it's just the dragonfly on it, and that's it. I don't know. To me, it's just, it could have used more. But now that my rant is over, let's talk about the Morpher, the Ogre Caliber. The Morpher is a sword, not the first time, and it won't be the last. But wow, a long time ago, I got flamed for criticizing how to transform with it. And honestly, I was just going off of how everyone morphed for the first time in their individual episodes. Shoot, even in the first episode, what happens? You flip the switch to designate what color you're going to be. Then you flip all the other switches just to go back to the red one in the middle. It's really, to morph, all you need to do is just flip the two switches. One for which ranger you are, the other just to start morphing. To me, I just felt that was so unnecessary. Because all that does is just make white noise for the bop it sword that it is. Hell, at least they do shorten it over time, but no, that's just me. Shoot, while we're at it, here's a crazy thought, which I really like. Imagine if this show was to be adapted into Power Rangers, and instead of doing all that, one, you keep it short, but two, for the switch to designate which ranger you're going to morph into, what if the sword said it's morphin' time? Tell me that would not be cool, because I think that would be awesome. But instead of it's morphin' time here, we get a more fun jingle. You are the king, you are the king. I went low because I need a sip of water for a moment. But yeah, the Ogre Caliber, not a bad sword. And while we're at it, the shields that they get that can also transform into other weapons, that's also pretty cool and nice. Because what else could the shield become? A blade, a bow, crossbow, etc. Those are just examples. And I just like how the weapon looks. And it's nice that this weapon is also appreciated. Not because it looks nice, but because they don't forget that they have a variety in their arsenal. Like, yeah, the swords are their morphers. It's also how they summon Kingohger and do finishers, but they don't forget that they have other options. Especially since, while swords are cool, projectiles aren't easy to dodge. And now for the mech. First time ever where the name of the show is the same name of the mech. The Rangers themselves are just the Ohsama Sentai. Also, first starting mech ever to be of 10 Zords. Admittedly, it's the main 5 and the rest are 2 of each bug. But wow, they pulled it off. And for Kingohger itself, not a bad mech. I like it alright. Admittedly, looking at this, you just think, what do these other bugs do exactly? Because the ladybugs, they're just on the wrist. But hell, the 2 spiders do add more color to the chest for Kuwagata. And shoot, what else? One Zord alone is just the handle of the sword. Just, they need to get to 10. That's somewhere, but just The fact that I wonder what made them want the starting mech to consist of 10 Zords. Maybe just to be different and show all the different varieties of bugs. Because what's on here? Stag beetle, a praying mantis finally, butterfly finally. Yeah, it's just first time we have like a bunch of varieties for an insect themed mech. Go all out, not just the beetles. But while we're still on Kingohger, there is one thing I would like to bring up, and that is the cockpits. Like, each ranger has their own separate cockpit, and they have a type of control thing on there that I don't know if that's from Pacific Rim or any type of mecha anime. But my question is, why is Papillon Ogre's cockpit in the sword? Half of Kingohger is literally auxiliary Zords. Hell, half of God Papillon makes the head. So what the hell? It's like, even from Papillon Ogre's Rita's Focus episode, she even complains about being in the sword. Like, she has to get whiplash on a regular basis.